Hi, Dr. Kelly here. I'm a nutritional therapist specializing in mental health nutrition. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. I am going to talk about organic versus not really worrying about organic in this video. And I also just wanted to address a question that came up on a post that I did actually. Somebody asked, what if you can't afford organic? And so I'm just going to give you some of my thoughts about that, things for you to think about. Of course, whatever feels right to you on your health journey, that's where you want to go. So if you like this video, please hit like. If you think it would be helpful to someone, please share. And then if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It really means a lot to us when we have subscribers. And please leave comments too. Hi, Dr. Kelly here. And I want to talk about organic versus do we really even need to be worried about organic? I'm going to share with you my thoughts on that. You can certainly think whatever you want to think about it yourself, because I do think in some cases, it's really important, but I've really changed my position on it. So I'm going to talk about that. And then I also wanted to address, the post didn't have anything to do with organic or not organic. It was actually an Instagram post that I had that was about gluten, actually, and gluten being inflammatory. And one of my former students said, "Hey, Dr. Ritter, what about folks who don't have access, financial or otherwise, to organic stuff?" And I want to talk about that a little bit because that is on my heart a lot. It's in my mind, but it's definitely on my heart a lot. And that's a conversation that I am in with local community nonprofits of how do we get food to people, preferably real food, and if they would even eat it, if we could get them fresh, real food, because that's also part of the issue is not just having access, because I think it's more important to have access to food and preferably whole, real, fresh food. But sometimes even when people are given that, they don't use it. And so to really understand like why, what's going on, is it that you don't know what to do with it, don't want to do with it. And I think people, even with access to things, whatever food they want, they still prefer things out of a package. And so I'm just going to give you my thoughts about that. I will say that I am of the position that it's better to be fed than not fed. And that it really, I feel it deeply in my soul when people are hungry. And that is very concerning and hurtful to me, especially when children are hungry. So I have a lot of thoughts around it. I don't have a ton of answers, but I'm in that conversation. And I think it's an important conversation to have. So it's true that the people who come to me, everyone that comes to me is trying to heal something. So I am a nutritional therapist that specializes in mental health nutrition, but not everybody comes to me for mental health stuff. Lots of people do come to me specifically for anxiety. That seems to be where I just get a lot of people that have either had chronic anxiety or have this acute anxiety situation, and they're trying to heal as naturally as possible. So that tends to be a lot of the folks that I have. But then people come for all different kinds of reasons. And some of the work that I do with nonprofits and some of the pro bono work that I do, I get to work with people of different cultural backgrounds, different means. And so I learn a lot from the clients that come to me. So here's what I think about organic. Yeah, of course, I think organic food is great. And there was a time that it was really important to me. And just in case you don't know, my background is actually clinical mental health. So I have a master's in EDS and a PhD all in counseling. And so clinical mental health counseling, and I was a professor for a long time. When I started getting really interested in the gut and understanding the gut-brain connection and how to heal. And about 2009, actually. So I've always been interested in health and wellness, but I've always also had this lens of mental health. Okay. But in 2009, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And at the time, I was working in clinical mental health, and I was a qualitative researcher. So, in my desire to try and help him and to also probably control things, I started studying people. I started interviewing people who had healed from cancer diagnoses, from a cancer diagnosis, or people who were living well with a cancer diagnosis. So, anyway, I was super into organic at that time. My father had a procedure called the Whipple. So he had pancreatic cancer. And the Whipple was, I mean, it's kind of a brutal process to try and heal from that for him. So he was in the hospital for a month. And when he got out, my mom was just really struggling with trying to figure out what to feed him. So I started cooking him for a while. I had Kelli's Kitchen and was cooking for him and for other people in the neighborhood. And I was super into making sure that that food was fresh and whole and real and also yummy, but also organic. And I remember at the time, the dietitian that was at the hospital, I said something about organic, and she said to me, organic doesn't really matter. So I didn't like that. And I said to her, well, when your loved one gets cancer, you can put whatever toxic stuff you want in them and you can feed them whatever you want, but we're going to go organic. And my thinking, well, we were still in that place of really trying to save him. And he lived for almost 3 years. And I definitely had in the back of my head quality of life, but I was still in that place of wanting to save him. So keep that in mind. And it turns out, so I was pretty irritated with her comment. And so my irritation back was like, well, you can do whatever toxic crap you want, but we're doing organic. And what I have found is that she was right. She was right. She was right for a few reasons. One, because when you have a situation where you just need to eat in order to have some energy to be able to fight, you really have to get some nutrients into the person that's in that situation. So she was right that it was more important for me to just get some nutrients in him. She was also right because at the end of your life, you really well, one, like it's the end of your life. So if there's something that you really want that sounds good to you, even if it's not healthy, like I think you should go ahead and have it. And we got to that place in his journey, my dad's journey, of like if he wanted, a Frosty from from Wendy's, we would get it because we just wanted him to enjoy the last bit of his life, right? Now we could argue like health. I wanted him to have a good quality of life too, and that's certainly not gut healing. But but there was a point in the journey where it's like just get him whatever he can eat, whatever he feels like he can eat, whatever will give him some nutrients. And the other piece of that is at the end of your life, this didn't sink in so much when he was dying, but when my best friend died, a time a little bit after that from cancer, she had brain cancer. It was very fast. And what really sunk in is that at the end of your life, you really don't need, we're not really worried about the food. In fact, we kept trying to feed her, and what the wonderful nurses were trying to say to us is like, stop. Like her body is shutting down, her organs are shutting down. It's just complicating things for y'all to keep trying to feed her. They said that to me with my dad too. I don't know. I was like, woof, I feed people. That's what I do. I love to feed people. I love to feed people food that's going to heal their bodies and help them do that. That is my thing. So, yeah, so it's kind of hard for me to stop doing that. So, my thoughts about organic versus non-organic. I still think that if you're able to eat organically grown food, that's probably where that's worth it. I also believe that in my own journey, and I'll just talk from my own healing because I am still on my own healing journey and have really grown a lot and had a lot of progress, but I have found there are certain foods, and for me, those are animal foods that come from an animal, are going to work better in my body than anything else. So I prioritize that. And being with people who are healing their bodies, figuring out the things that are really healing to their body that act like medicine and fuel, and figuring out the things that act like poison and avoiding those, to me, is more important than anything, if you can. So if you have the resources and you can figure that out. And I will tell you, I've worked with people who are on live paycheck to paycheck, very little wiggle room around that. And we have still figured out ways to resource so that they can get eggs and they can get dairy and eggs and things. That's a whole nother. I just thought of a story of a wonderful woman in New Zealand that is just delightful and just unbelievably amazing. But she had to come to terms with her own addiction, and what money she did have, she had to really get to get honest about how she was spending the money she did have on junk and sugar. And she was so funny though, because she's like, can I eat roadkill? Because we were trying to figure out how to get more meat and more animal sources, just so that she could get the most nutrient dense food and to heal both from the addiction stuff. And she had a bunch of health issues. So all these stories about how to help people resource what's going to be most healing in their own body. I'm also a quantum person. Like, I'm a quantum healing geek. I love talking about it. I love learning about quantum healing. And so I think it's a better, whether we should have this or we shouldn't have that or whatever, I think a better conversation is to talk about food as not only fuel and maybe medicine and what's poisonous to the system, but also about information, using food as information. And I think it's not a surprise that when we open packages for what we think is food, I would call that stuff mostly nonsense. Sometimes you can open a package and it's got stuff that is okay for you, but mostly if you're opening a package, that's just going to be confusing to the body. So, yeah, because so locally grown food, I think, is a better conversation. Figuring out resources for real food so that people can have access to real food, I think that's probably a better conversation. But then, will people actually use it, and will they know what to do with it? Because you even think about people with resources that, at one point we had a subscription to a CSA, a community garden, and we would get a box of stuff. And sometimes I have no idea what that stuff is. I'd have to take a picture of it and send it to my friend Carla and say, what is this? And what do I do with it? And I think a lot of the farms are really great about helping you figure out what the food is and what to do with it. But even that, like, if you're picking up a box of food from wherever and it's not in a package, it's not some can or, box of food, can you cook with, do you have access to cook? I've worked with people that didn't actually have kitchens. So because of their living situations at the time, figuring that out, cans of tuna, things like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is to really think about what food is going to be best in your body with where you are and what resources you have to get that food. I think fed is better than not fed. I just do. And I also think there's a time and a place for certain things on your healing journey. And I also, I think that talking about food as information, but I think it's important to support our farmers, all of the farmers. I think that the government makes it very difficult for farmers, and I think we need the food. So I believe in working with farmers, finding out what they do. I support organizations that go in and work with farmers to help them become regenerative farmers, to really consider the land and the soil and the animals and the plants that are there. So I think that that's important to me. I try to support as much of that as I can. And at the same time, I eat what I know is going to be work in my body. And I prioritize that. And if it isn't grass fed, grass finished, organic, pastured eggs, those kinds of things, I'll still eat that over something else, over a plant for me. But for some other people, it might be something else. That's just what's working for me and my healing. The other thing that's really influenced my position, my non-dogma, do what works for you position, is having both. I have severe food allergies, but really one really bad one to shellfish. And then both of my sons have food allergies, severe food allergies, one to tree nuts and the other one to peanuts. And we've had a lot of health issues with my youngest son and some trips to the ER and all of that. And after the last trip to the ER, which was over this past summer, just a couple months ago, we went back to the allergist and had some skin testing, and it looked like he was going to be allergic to lots of things. And I said to him when we left there, you're just going to have to eat what feels safe to you. And he said to me, Mom, nothing feels safe. No food feels safe to me. I'm somebody who likes to feed people. I'm a nutritional therapist. My background is in clinical mental health. His anxiety, his not being able to help him, very, very difficult. So we just had to back it up and just go really slowly and a little bit at a time. And I'm just cooking a lot of what we feel like he can handle. And we're just working our way there. What I do with clients in that situation, because I have a lot of clients that we have to work with what feels safe to them. And so we start with whatever feels safe and then try to level it up, if that makes sense. I do believe in targeted supplementation. I'm absolutely 100% into biohacking and using all the things that are healing and helpful to people. So I'm not opposed to doing all of those kinds of things. And I have colleagues that I'm sure would disagree with me that fed is best. They would say it's better to fast. I'd rather people just, fast and not eat any of the crap or any of the things that are going to be deteriorating to their health. I get that. I can see your point. And I'm a fed. I'm a fed is best girl. So that's just where I am on it. I think that, figuring out the things, just get the most nutrient dense food that you can afford and have access to and start there. And I'm just remind people that that might actually not be what you've been told is the healthiest foods. So if it feels healing and healthy to you, you keep it. If you're like, I'm not sure this is even working, it might not be working for you. On that note, I'll end. So be well, my friends.